Now we're going to go over some of the suspension components we went over in the PowerPoint. This one happens to have a straight axle front end, which has the leaf spring suspension up front. Our other engines in our truck have the Tact Force suspension, which is the torsion suspension, and I'll show you guys that later. But this one, since we're up here and it's good, easy access, we can go over some of the leaf spring components. So this is the spring pack. This itself is the whole spring pack. The main leaf is the one that's wrapped. So you see this wrapping around here. This is the main leaf, and then these are all the other leaves. With the spring pack, per California DMV, you can have up to a quarter more cracked or missing and still be in service. Check with your agency. With our agency, if anything's broken, it's going to be out of service and get repaired. So check with your agency, but per California DMV commercial driving handbook, you can have a quarter of the pack cracked or missing, and you can still be in service. So just a couple components on here that we're going to talk about. Spring hanger. The spring hanger's on the front. The spring hanger is a stationary component. This part of the spring does not move. It can rotate on that hanger. There's a bushing in there, but it does not move at all. Going back to the back, this is called a swing shackle or spring shackle. In its purpose, since this spring, when it flexes, right now it's arced, and when it flexes, it flattens out. So when it flattens out, that it has to move out to follow that radius. So it has to have a part that can move back and forth. So since the front is on a spring hanger, it doesn't move at all. We have to have a shackle on the back. This swings back and forth. So if this tire drops down, it's going to pull the suspension down. It's going to pull the shackle forward. If you hit a bump and it pushes the suspension up, this shackle is going to swing back. So you got a shackle here and a hanger up front. These are just to hold the spring pack together. These are clips that hold the spring pack together. The other main part of this component of this is going to be your U-bolts. Your U-bolts are what bolt the spring itself to the axle. So you got to make sure these U-bolts are not loose and there's no cracked or missing U-bolts on your apparatus. Going to here, you have the shock. What the shock's job is to kind of smooth out the action of the suspension. The shock doesn't hold up the vehicle, and it does not. If you had just a shock on there with no springs, your vehicle wouldn't hold up the weight of the vehicle. The springs support the weight of the vehicle and take the bumps, but if you didn't have a shock on here, you couldn't control that spring rate, and it would be super bouncy, or it would rebound real quick, or it would compress real quick. So this has compression and rebound in it, and it just smooths out the action of the suspension. So looking at the shock, you want to make sure it's tight. There's no rust or anything around here, which might indicate a loose bolt, no cracking on the mounts, and it's tight on the bottom. So you have a shock on each side, and this one has the leaf springs. We'll talk about the torsion suspension on the Tact 4, and then on the PowerPoint, go over the coil springs and the airbag suspension.